We are live this morning on the Huddle. We are continuing in our series on how to share practical steps on you writing your first book. And this morning, we have another great guest sharing his journey on how he's writing his first book. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, huddle up, because it's time for the Huddle. Good morning. Welcome to the Huddle. I'm your host, Walter Strong. If you're new here and you want to find your passion, unlock your potential, and discover God's purpose for your life, then I want to welcome you to the show. To those of you who are watching me on YouTube this morning and on Facebook and other social media channels, we want to welcome you to the Huddle. Just let me know in the comment section where you're watching us from. And those of you who are going to be watching the replay, we welcome you to the Huddle. This morning, we have another great guest as we are continuing in our series on encouraging you and encouraging me to write our first or our next book. Our guest today is the host of the DYSRespect Your Senses podcast show, Mr. Hygh, and he's here to share how one of the most important persons in his life has influenced him to be a man of purpose, to be a man of honor, and to be a man of integrity. But most importantly, share his voice to the world that it is heard and not echoed. And so this morning, we want to welcome back our returning guest, Mr. Hygh. Welcome back to the show, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here, sir. Thank you.
Great, man. It's great, man. And just to kind of give everyone the background in terms of how me and Al hooked up, a couple of shows, maybe 5 or 10 shows ago, right, Al? We hooked up and did a podcast special where we assembled the Avengers of podcasting to come on and share and break down, how you can be able to start your own podcast. And Al, let me tell you, that was definitely one of my favorites, having all you guys on. But I wanted to have you come back on because you truly have a message. And I don't even like to say story, because sometimes people say stories, you think of what you read in the book and, in a bedtime story, no, there's no characters. No, we're supposed to be people of character who have a message. And so that's why I wanted you to come on and share your testimony about why God raised you to be the man you are today and how God raised you to be a son of a preacher woman. And so my first question, Al, is just tell our viewers about yourself and how you found your passion and your purpose in podcasting.
So a little bit about myself. My name is Hygh. I currently live in the Kansas City metropolitan area. I live in a suburb called Overland Park, Kansas. Mm-hmm. I got the idea of podcasting, got the bug maybe about 2017, started reading some books about it, but I really wasn't serious about it. I was one of them people who dealt with an issue that most of us deal with called procrastination. Mm-hmm. And so I kept putting it off. Then, I was like, well, I want to do this particular podcast, like just to talk to people, to help people. But I never put the pieces two and two together. And some things went together in my life. I had too much chaos, maybe too much noise going on in my background. So it really wasn't time to pursue podcasting. Let's flash forward to 2019. I'm working on my dissertation for my doctorate degree, and the idea the word disrespect your senses came back to mind. I did 2 episodes. I did a disclaimer, and I can't remember the episode that I did after that particular one. I think it was just I want to say it was swing the bat. I can't remember it right now, but I did that like 15-20 minute episode, but I had issues of inconsistency, and just so much was going on at the time. And then I stopped that one, and I started planning for a sports podcast. I was like, well, maybe I could put sports and bring God together. But it just, and I still to this day, before even like when you sent me the questions, Walter, I was looking at the old blueprints of the Casual Highlight, which is still currently running 51 episodes in. But I realized, okay, I started doing that one. And, the first couple of episodes, you live, you learn, and you grow from it. And looking back now, it kind of got me ready for this venture of Disrespect Your Senses. And the term Disrespect Your Senses, I went to a Bible college in Louisiana called the Hope Bible Institute. It's one of the fastest growing Bible colleges in the country. And the term came up. I was in one of my classes for my bachelor's, and the terminology was just about living by faith and not by sight, and disregard. And it might look kind of bad right now, but God is good, and God's going to resurrect you, and just believe in God for the impossible. If your bank account is like -3, we're not believing that. And we're believing for millions right now, and just having that faith of a mustard seed. But I took that particular word and just marinated on that word for years. And I'm like, there's more in this world that we've had a surface of just looking at it on the surface, but really haven't dug to the root of the reason why. If we look in just America alone, a lot of people have pushed away the issue of racism, and there's no racism existing. But if you look at certain systems and certain from your financial institution to your legal institution, there's still, to even our laws that were created, is still some unbalance in some areas. So I'm like, well, let's ask the question why. Let's disrespect what we see right now, and let's go dive in and find out the roots of the issue, and let's pull from the root and find out the foundation, and if this foundation is correct or not. If we go back even to how 1619, when our ancestors came over from Africa, and the country was built on slavery. The roots of America was built on slavery, and people kind of just brush that off and say, oh, no. But I said, but no, let's disrespect that for just a moment. Let's put that on, not like disrespect, not honor, but let's just put this on hold for a moment, and let's dig the root and find out, how do we get to this point? And so now we find the why, and then we create solutions to move forward. So that's just and just like this past 3 or 4 months, I've just been getting more, like, I've had stuff for years in me, just different words I would write on my phone. I had different topics. And so certain things, like, okay, I have a voice out here. I'm not going to be intimidated. Let me go ahead and start this second podcast. I'm a little bit more busy and man now than what I was, which is one show. More time management. But I'm excited about the feedback. I'm excited about reaching people. If it's 2 people that day on that show, and God bless. If it's 100 people, God bless. And I put in my disclaimer. I tell people my disclaimer: we don't have to agree on everything, but let us all come together as one, and then just be happy and just love and fellowship with one another. That's my goal.
Gotcha. And let me tell you something. When you did this past week's episode of The Son of a Preacher Woman, you got my attention. Because we always have that mantra: if I can just reach one, And then to hear that not only did you reach one, but you got my attention, and how you shared about how your mom's was the most influential, important woman that really influenced and impact your life. I want to segue into question number 2 about how your mom's, she was mom to you, but she was also called into ministry. And how did she shape your mind, your mindset, your attitude on you not just echoing, but having a voice that needed to be heard in this world as a podcaster and a writer? How did she just share a little how she did that?
I think the shaping came from of not being in fear, and I dealt with the issue that I dealt with it was being like, and is anybody going to hear what I have to say? Is anybody going to truly love me? Because I had a lot of self-esteem issues. Now, yeah, that my mom, reared in me in the Word of God and was a minister, but it was just me and my mother. There was no, I had father figures, but there was no father figure in the house. You see that I tell people that there's a difference between having a father figure, but a father figure in the house. So, so my mom did the best that she could, but one of the things that she instilled in me to be a voice was always the power of prayer and always discerning the time and the season, and just watching her pray, watching her read, watching her write. That kind of shaped. And then watching the biggest thing was the preparation, being prepared. Like there would be nights, the night before she would do a service, she was ministering Sunday morning. I would sit and I would listen to her and critique what she's speaking about. And that's some of the things I never forget. And I'm like, nah, mom, you shouldn't put that in there. No, that's good. And then watching her get up there, and all of a sudden, God would like flip the whole script. And that was the first time I learned about that. When anytime any speaker has inspiration to speak, and all of a sudden it's just something, light bulb flips and say, hold on, we're gonna flip this. I feel led to come a different way. I saw that firsthand. And that's one of the first lessons I learned. If you were ordained minister, been in the pulpit, God will change that message for you immediately.
Oh yes.
And immediately. And then you'd be like, why did I write all this manuscript out? And it was really for you. It was really to minister to you, because anytime you write something, it's to first minister to you and then to give to the people. And that's in any type of writing. Anytime you write something inspirational, it's something to minister to yourself and then give to the people after that. Because if it's not ministering to you, then it really it's no good. It's no good at all. But it just shaped me to be like the part about preparation. It shaped me to always be in tune with God, to be in prayer, to be able to walk in His steps. And it's funny. I had one of my best friends at one time, and she told me this several years back. And I used to help her out with a prayer line. And there were times I would go in there. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any script. And then I just let God just like lead. And she said, look, Al, I can tell when it's Al, and I can tell when God is talking through you. And so I've learned how to, and I'm still learning. Walter, you're still learning of how to be led by the Spirit and to truly like discern and to be led in that particular aspect. So all those different things have added from my mom's, the prayers, the preparation, to this point now of podcasting, and to go out there and to use my voice and then to believe in myself, most importantly, because a lot of people can believe in you. But at the end of the day, you have to look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, okay, I can do this. I'm not going to be in fear no more. And I'm not going to be silent no more. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the gifts that are given to me and use them.
Great point. Great point. Hey, those of you who are watching us on YouTube this morning, I need you to do me a couple of favors here. Just drop down in the comment or in the chat section. Let us know where you're watching us from. And if also I know and throughout this discussion, you're going to get great value. Just share this live stream on your favorite social media channel, because we're talking about the son of a preacher woman, but we're also going to be diving in terms of the book that you need to write. And so, how you shared in your episode of the son of a preacher woman, how mom has been very influential in you now writing a book now. And you talked about how you have gone through this interview process, learning from different family members, friends, co-workers that her life impacted. Share a little how that interview process was on how you have begun formulating this book that you're writing.
So the title "Son of the Preacher Woman" came from, I always thought about, I think Aretha Franklin, if I'm not mistaken, had a song "Son of the Preacher Man."
Okay.
And so "Son of the Preacher Woman," because many people, when they talk about being a preacher's kid, the first thing they say, "Oh, your dad was a pastor," and but they don't, it's 2021, but people still don't recognize women could be pastors and bishops and leaders and apostles, and they don't really recognize that. So I look at it as my mom was a trailblazer, but to formulate questions, it just came to, I was like, I gotta know the history of, really, it was kind of like a healing process for me, dealing with my mom's death at such a young age. Because at the time I was 19, I was still in my teens and early college. So it's just knowing my history to pass down to my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids. And I thought about my grandmother, and my grandmother told me history stuff about her dad and her upbringing. So I was like, I got to do this for my mom. I'm in my 30s. The people that she was speaking to are still around, still active, and we don't. And the COVID kind of switched the game up. So a lot of things have changed, nowadays. So going out, I started making a list of people that we knew. Everybody, any best friends that my mom knew, anybody that I knew on Facebook. I wrote that list down. And then I started in the city I'm in, Overland Park, because she had a church out here for 3 years. And so I started talking to those people. And what's crazy is the church, they had a 150th church anniversary. And they gave me a book with like the whole history of the church in there. And people were and they pulled up different articles that she had done at the time at the church in different bulletins and that type of stuff. And every person that I called or talked to was like, "Man, you just crossed my mind." And so it was like they was already being prepared, because I was coming to ask questions. They had already knew. And so to formulate, it took a little bit getting the list of people together, because then all of a sudden you be like, "Dang, I got to go back to when she was in seminary school."
Okay.
I have to go back to even, I'm still working on now contacts of when she was in college at Southern University. And when she was at Southern University in Baton Rouge, that was over 30 years ago. So trying to find those, that process is a little bit difficult, finding people over 30 years ago who were like, "Hey, you remember Denise? Do you, she had a son, do you remember all this stuff?" So it's been good, and it's been a lot of healing on my end, because there was some things that I didn't deal with, and just hearing those stories and how she died empty. She poured out. She gave everything to her position and to serving the youth and the young adults at the time. And the people that I've interviewed, they still, man, that was one of my favorite pastors. I love your mother so like, she was so inspirational to my career. Or like people who are in the United Methodist Church and Ministry now. So many people she mentored, people I haven't even met, and I'm finding out. And then when you interview people, "Oh, have you tried this person? Well, we'll contact this person over here." And then you kind of, "Well, let me give you 3 more names over here." I'm like, wait, I don't remember this. like, wow. And it's working everything, but it's fun work. because you get all the stories, you get all the behind the scenes juice. You know, I'm old enough now. I can take, you know, at 10 or 11. You know, you immature. You're not ready to handle some of the things or the meat that she went through. But now, you know, I'm in my 30s, so I can handle it. I'm a grown man, so I can understand that stuff. So so the process has been actually fun. It's been rewarding. I did take a break due to the COVID situation, but I'm back at it now, and I've put some family members to work. I've asked the family members questions. I've asked more friends questions, and so it's fun work for me. Very fun.
Great. And see, today we're talking about writing your first book and the topic of, you know, Al's journey and, you know, being the son of a preacher woman, and you highlight some great points, Al, in terms of when you're writing this book. You know, you have to put the research in. You got to look at the ideas and where this book needs to go, because you know there is an audience that you know that this book needs to reach. And just being a PK, you know, I'm a grandson of a grandfather who was a pastor, and a father was like, he wanted no parts of being a preacher's kid, so he ended up running in the other direction, if you will, from church, being out of church. But I end up, seems like it, I told my pops, is that it always seems like it hit him, bounced off of you, and bounced on to me. But I said, it still got you. You just don't want to submit and give into it. But you're right, being a preacher's kid can be very challenging sometimes, of what you go through in school, and being bullied, and feeling like mom or dad is reaching out and trying to rescue everyone else, but find it difficult to be able to rescue their own in the home. You know, they're fighting all these other battles, but it's not that they are forgetting, but sometimes the enemy can make it appear to us as preachers' kids that we don't matter. And that silent battle that preachers' kids go through. And so you got a great audience in terms of who you're trying to reach. I wanted to also share with you, and you mentioned COVID being one of the challenges. What were one or two other challenges that you've kind of come across in writing this book that you've had to pivot and adjust? Because everything is going to be done in God's timing. But what have been some of the challenges as a writer that you had to work through?
I would just say the biggest one is contacting the people who knew mom, who was close with her. I would say some other challenges could be just myself, and just the inward part of me, and the mind, and just like, man, do I have what it takes to do this project? Do I have the finance? Like, who's going to back it up? Who's going to help me market it? All that type of stuff just began playing through my head and through my mind. Like, yo, I need God. I need you. And the emotional part was minor, but when I was writing it, I didn't even realize how much hurt I still had from dealing with her death. And my mom's been deceased now 15 years. But I was 19 when she died. And so it was so much going on. I was like, I had to push to get my degree. I had to push to get this other stuff. I was trying to push to get stuff done, but I never really sat down and healed. So part of the writing process was my healing, and actually dealing with stuff face to face of who I truly am. So that part was difficult at first, but I want to say the reward was to really see myself, who God, the gifts that God had given me, but also heal from my past, from different traumas. And I even had to ask God, and I had to forgive myself for things that I put my mother through as a teenager, because, you know, the typical thing, a lot of people say, well, PKs are the worst, you know, they do all the craziest stuff. I didn't do it, to be honest with you. I did not do some of the things that I've heard other people do. Part of it because I just had a certain respect for her, and then also I put we would I want to yeah, I didn't do some of the things that other people did because I was just fearful of it because I wanted to be this athlete, and so I steered away from the drugs and the alcohol, but
Mm-hmm.
I still dealt with like being deceitful, being rebellious, not doing well in school, not being lazy, procrastination, those type of things. So looking back at that, that was difficult at first because I'm like, man, I wasted all this time and I had all this potential, but I
Mm-hmm.
was still hurting. And part of the hurt was that I had a father fracture, and
Mm.
and you can say, well, you had a strong black woman, you had praying people, but it's something about a biological connection with a
Mm-hmm.
father or a mother, and every child desires that. Every child desires that. But people say, oh no, you'll be all right. You got your uncle, you got your grandpa right here. That's cool, but it's nothing like that actual knowing where you come from.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so dealing with those particular emotions, writing the book, like I had to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
So I see why I had to write the book because I had to grow through my life story, but but not just to help other people, but it goes back to helping me first and me to fully like heal and to fully like understand, okay, this is what I'm made of, and I have a story, but first let's go ahead and get all this clutter that's on the years of clutter, years of frustration, years of things that didn't work out. Let's go back and dig up the reason why
Gotcha.
it didn't.
Hey, I know you are getting great value out of this discussion. And so give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Uh, what are some of the areas of your life that you need to get healed and delivered from so that your book can come out? Because the main message that I'm hearing from Al and I'm hearing just from past guests that before you can really release and get a book published, there's things in our own lives we got to get right. We got to have our living room clean before we can let someone inside and sit down and enjoy, the story of our life. And so you brought some great points. Let me just ask this final question to you, Al. What have been some of the ways that your mother's legacy has inspired you to become a better podcaster, a writer, and a future author?
How has she inspired me to do that? Just
Mm-hmm.
to be, just to be great, just to go out there and give it everything that I have, and not and go all in. Cut
Mm-hmm.
inspiration. Every congregation that she worked with, whether it was the African American churches, black churches, or the white churches, she gave
Mm-hmm.
100%. And many times there's a difference between 99% and
Mm-hmm.
100%. It's
Yes.
two differences. And when you give it 100 and you give it all out and you go all in for it, that's what makes that's what brings the best. That's what draws the attraction because people are like, man, he and you might think, man, this wasn't the best, and then other people are like, man, you said that on the podcast. You did this, you did it, but because you went all in, and,
Mm-hmm.
and when you go all in, people will never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Every person that I've interviewed, the people that I've interviewed so far, they'll never, her work ethic was off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Mm-hmm.
off the charts. I'm like, and I'm sitting here like, I'm doing half stuff, thinking I'm doing something. But the work ethic, she always pushed, work ethic, bringing the best foot forward. Even at a time where in the late '90s, early 2000s, dressing, she
Mm-hmm.
was big when it came to appearance and how you look and not being sloppy. So
Mm-hmm.
from the inward to the outward, just being being prepared, what you're about to say, prepping. You had Walter, you had to prep for this show. Sure. Before you ask these questions, I have to go prep for my next episodes of Disrespect Your Senses, the Casual Highlight. Just the preparation and giving it 100%. And those things I take with me now as a future author, as a podcaster, YouTube, whatever I decide that I want to do in life. It's all about going all in.
All right. Hey, question of the day. Question of the day for you. What is stopping you in your life from writing your first book? Drop it down in the comments section and let us hear from you on what you have to work through in your life so that this book that you have, that you know you've been talking about for the last 2 years, that needs to be written. Hey, Al, 2 quick questions and we're going to get up out of here.
All right.
When can we expect the book to be published? And tell our audience where they can reach you.
Whew. So as far as the book publishing, it's going to take, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's going to take me about another year because it's a lot of interviews that I still want to complete and getting the writing process together. So I would say next 12 to 18 months, I would say do this. Follow me on Instagram at Hygh Digital. Also, that's probably the best place to find me. Twitter, Hygh, and on Facebook, Hygh. But check out both of my podcasts, The Casual Highlight and Disrespect Your Senses. Disrespect Your Senses is going to be dealing more with the other side of the real world. The Casual Highlight is sports. But if you want to hear updates of what I'm doing with the book, definitely be in tune with Disrespect Your Senses, and that's where you'll be able to get my updates. I'm about to close out the series. I got 2 more episodes I want to do about being a preacher's kid. It's crazy how I started a series already in a relaunch. I didn't consider myself doing a series, but definitely check out the podcast and we're just going to use what God has given us and we'll get it out there to people. I believe it's going to help not just people who are preachers' kids who grew up in a household of preachers, but it's going to help women. I believe it's going to help women in ministry as well to go forward. Just to give you a quick nugget, pretty much every church, like the last 3 churches my mother was a pastor at, she was the first African-American woman to be in those facilities. And so that blew my mind right there. Just that history, trailblazing.
Right. Hey, you can find Disrespect Your Senses podcast on Spreaker.com and BS3 Radio. And so I believe it drops every Monday, Al told me. And so we're going to be definitely tuning in this Monday for another episode of The Son of a Preacher's Woman. So question of the day, what are you waiting for? What's stopping you to be able to write this new book that you know you got to write? Put it down in the comments section. And for those of you who are watching the replay, who got true value out of this discussion, just give us a hashtag replay. And those of you who have been watching us this morning, you've gotten great value out of this discussion. Just hashtag value. If you haven't had an opportunity yet, subscribe to this YouTube channel and to share this live stream on your favorite social media channel. So we're going to close this out. Al is going to stay with us for the after show and just have a quick chat. But as we close, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that will prevail in your life. So make a quality decision today and let God's purpose prevail in your life. We'll talk to you next Saturday on The Huddle.